Donald Trump scores yet another win.
We're the smartest people, we're the most loyal people.
Hot off his victory in Nevada, Donald Trump visits this evangelical university founded by Pat Robertson. What was his message? I'm Jason Calvi. I'll tell you coming up.
Severe storms leave death and damage.
The house would not stop shaking the whole entire time.
The threat now spreads to more states. The Pope's message of mercy, how he wants to combat injustice. And reliable information. We show you the new video and website revealing the truth about abortion. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, February 24th, 2016. The top three finishers in Nevada. Donald Trump easily wins Tuesday's Republican caucuses. Marco Rubio nudges out Ted Cruz for second place. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Patrick. The runners-up are now positioning themselves as the alternative to Trump, who's now enjoying growing momentum.
Now we're winning the country.
Donald Trump rides to victory in the Nevada caucuses Tuesday.
We won with young, we won with old, we won with highly educated, we won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
Trump highly favored even before results started coming in. The real fight was between Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio for second place. Cruz spins his showing in Nevada as progress.
We are one step closer to turning the pages on the failures of the Obama-Clinton disaster.
Rubio touts his establishment candidate identity as critical for a general election win.
I'm a conservative that can unite this party.
As the Republicans watch the Nevada returns come in, Democrats hit them on the issue of race at CNN's South Carolina town hall.
This birther issue, which we heard from Donald Trump and others, a racist effort to try to delegitimize the President of the United States.
Bernie Sanders, courting the minority vote ahead of that state's Saturday primary, hits rival Hillary Clinton over her paid speeches to Wall Street. He demands she releases the transcripts. Clinton says she would on one condition.
Sure, if everybody does it, and that includes the Republicans. Why is there one standard for me and not for everybody else?
Is closely following the presidential campaign. Jason Calvi is on the campaign trail tonight with Donald Trump. We go first to Lauren Ashburn at our political desk. Lauren, just how big is Trump's lead right now?
Well, Brian, the race could get even uglier than it is now, and Donald Trump predicts that the relative civility between him and Marco Rubio could fall away as they battle for convention delegates. Let's take a look. The current standing, Donald Trump has 81 delegates, Cruz and Rubio 17, Kasich 6, and Ben Carson 4. 1,237 are needed to clinch the nomination. Now, the key test will be Super Tuesday next week. More than a dozen states are holding primaries or caucuses that day. The biggest is Texas. The contests add up to about a quarter of the overall vote. Jason Calvi joins us now from the campaign trail. He's at Regent University in Virginia Beach, where Donald Trump is trying to win more of the evangelical vote. Jason.
Lauren, that's right. This university was founded by televangelist Pat Robertson, a former presidential candidate himself. Now, Trump did win the evangelical vote last night in Nevada, as well as in South Carolina. He's going to need it to win again on Super Tuesday, so he's making a pitch right here. Standing Room Plus at this afternoon's candidate forum, hosted by two evangelical powerhouses. The moderators questioned the frontrunner during a wide-ranging discussion. Trump's thoughts on a Supreme Court nominee?
Pro-life. We want.
And on his spat with the Pope, Trump continued to praise the pontiff.
He actually was very, very nice the next day. You know, nobody explained to him about the crime. Nobody explained to him about the drugs pouring across and the economy. And he was actually very nice.
Trump won 40% of the evangelical vote in Nevada. Christian TV host David Brody explains why.
Evangelicals operate in a world of biblical absolutes, kind of right and wrong, good versus evil, this idea that Jesus is the only way to heaven. Donald Trump also operates in a world of absolutes. He sees winners and losers, and so there's a kinship there.
But the majority of Nevada evangelicals split their votes among the other candidates, some citing Trump's past pro-choice views.
Such as abortion, he's kind of been on both sides of the aisle on that.
Others understand his change of heart. Yvonne Dixon is a former Planned Parenthood employee.
She converted to Catholicism while watching EWTN.
I was once pro-choice, and I changed, so I know that it's possible.
Trump's goal is to convert more evangelicals to his team, giving him a supersized win on Super Tuesday.
Well, they're huge, and it's really going to be a make or break case for Ted Cruz on that day. I mean, he needs evangelicals to win. Super Tuesday is a treasure trove of evangelicals, and the reality is if he doesn't do well with evangelicals that day, you're probably going to see him get out of the race.
David Brody there speaking about Ted Cruz. Now, here's some interesting data from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. They found that Trump polls well with all kinds of different groups, except for one group, those who go to church weekly. Lauren?
It doesn't seem like that jives with what we're seeing in all of the polls. Anyway, did Donald Trump dump on any of the other candidates? What is he saying about them?
He did. He certainly didn't feel the burn today. He said it looks like Bernie Sanders will soon be out of this race. And he also said he predicted that Hillary Clinton would not be indicted. Lauren?
Well, that is something. We'll see if that does happen. Thank you so much, Jason. In the fight over who will be the next Supreme Court justice, President Obama says he understands Republicans are under enormous pressure to oppose any nomination he puts forth. But he still wants them to fulfill their constitutional responsibility and hold a hearing on a nomination. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says it won't happen.
I think it will be very difficult for Mr. McConnell to explain how, if the public concludes that this person is very well qualified, that the Senate should stand in the way simply for political reasons.
Both sides have rights here, and there is a precedence not acting on a nominee in the middle of a presidential election.
Genevieve Would, a former spokeswoman for the Republican National Committee. She joins us now. Genevieve, thank you so much for coming in.
Here.
Is this what we should be focusing on in this country, this battle between whether or not the Supreme Court person should be nominated or not?
No, I don't think so. I think the focus ought to be on what should a new Supreme Court justice look like? What's their role? What should the right philosophy be? And that ought to be a debate that's had at the presidential election level. Let's let the Republican and Democratic nominees have it out, and then they can decide, the voters can decide, which way do I want to see the court go in the long term? I mean, I'm very sad we lost Justice Scalia, but his death has put that issue, I think, front and center in a way it might not have been.
I agree. Let's move on to the election. As we saw before, Trump seems unbeatable at this point. That's what everyone is saying. He is the front runner. He has the most electoral votes right now. Is anything possible to stop him right now?
Well, look, he clearly has the momentum. He's in the lead, so it's his to lose. But that said, Rubio and Cruz are definitely still in this. And as long as they hang around, he doesn't have it wrapped up. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, very true. Now, President Romney, a little Freudian slip right there, or not.
He would have loved to have
He would have loved to have had me say that, right. Mitt Romney came out today and told Neil Cavuto on Fox, I think that there is likely to be a bombshell in Trump's taxes. Where is this opposition research coming from? Why is Mitt Romney the one to be putting this out now? You know from your days in the RNC, you know how things like this happen.
Well, it's kind of like Hillary's email thing. Whenever people aren't forthcoming with their information, and people have been asking for Donald Trump's for some time, and I know Marco Rubio hasn't released his, neither has Ted Cruz, but nobody thinks theirs will be near as complicated as Donald Trump's is. And the fact that he's not putting it forth, I think people are saying what's in there that he doesn't want us to see. Frankly, I'd like to get him out on the table now, and let's not wait till he wins the nomination, if that were to happen, and then you let Hillary Clinton's opposition research team dump out all this information. I think anybody running ought to get their information out in front of us, their taxes, any of the background questions that are being asked. If they're running for president asking for our vote, they have the obligation to make sure we know everything we need to know before giving them that vote of confidence.
Genevieve Wood, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. As the political process proceeds, the South Carolina Democratic primary is on Saturday, Super Tuesday, in less than a week. Brian?
Lauren Ashburn, thank you. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. 2 more people died today as powerful storms ripped through eastern Virginia. This raises the death toll from tornadoes and severe weather to 5.
You see that?
Oh my God.
3 people were killed and dozens injured overnight across the Gulf Coast. Severe storms and tornadoes ripped swaths through the deep south and Florida.
I just knew that, that it was a tornado. I was crying and I was so scared. I mean, the house would not stop shaking the whole entire time. I mean, it was terrible.
In some parts of Louisiana, entire communities are reduced to rubble. 160 motorhomes were blown apart as a storm ravaged an RV park in New Orleans.
The noise of the tornado was so loud that you couldn't hear much of the trees when they were snapping.
In neighboring Prairieville, people were dodging debris and running to take cover when the storm hit. The roof of a Gold's Gym is peeled up as glassed walls came crashing down.
When the weather gets so bad, the roof of your gym and the wall just blows off.
In Florida, apartment complexes are demolished. Damaging winds toss cars like toys. Texas wasn't spared the storm's wrath. Hail the size of golf balls pummeled homes. Thousands are without power. There are hundreds of reports of broken windows and damaged rooftops. And many of those who lost homes in this storm reportedly suffered damage in Hurricane Isaac in 2012. A fierce debate rages in Italy over a proposed law legalizing not marriage but civil unions for homosexual couples. Today, a controversial clause allowing gays to adopt the biological children of their partners was dropped. Mary Shovlain joining us from Rome tonight. Mary, is this legislation expected to pass now?
Good evening, Brian. It is expected to pass, and with flying colors tomorrow. The vote is expected today. Matteo Renzi, the Italian prime minister, took out all of the controversial clauses that gave it enough steam to go ahead and pass. He took out the clause for adoption by same-sex couples of the biological children of their partners. He took out references to marriage in any of the legislation, and he took out the requirement for both of the same-sex partners to remain faithful to one another. So it is expected to pass by tomorrow evening.
Is the Vatican weighing in at all on this?
The Vatican's staying way clear of this. Pope Francis, when asked on the plane coming back from Mexico, said, "I told the Italian bishops 3 things when I became elected, and one of them was Italian politics is all on your shoulders." But Cardinal Parolin also weighed in last evening. He was at an event with the Italian Prime Minister and the Italian President. He said, as long as there are no references to marriage in the civil union debate, that was the major question. He did not want marriage part of that legislation.
Marriage does not equal civil union. So today in his general audience, the Pope was teaching on mercy, using the wealth and power that people have. What was his message?
It was quite a strong message, Brian. As you mentioned, it's not a bad thing, he said, to be wealthy or even powerful. But when you lose that element of service, which brings all of your goods, even your wealth and your power, to bear in the service to your fellow man, because once you lose that, it turns into selfishness, egoism, even dictatorships, And he said, in the end, we end up alone. So we're referencing the Old Testament. He said, the more we buy up land or house upon house, in the end, we're isolated and far from God.
From just outside St. Peter's Basilica, Mary Shovlain joining us from Rome tonight. Mary, thank you. Coming up, the realities of abortion. A new video shines light on this graphic taking of human life and a Catholic approach to slowing the spread of the Zika virus. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday evening for EWTN News Nightly. I'm Brian Patrick. U.S. abortion clinics are closing at a record rate, according to Bloomberg Business. Along with a wave of recent regulations on the abortion industry, new strategies in the pro-life movement could also be a factor. Catherine Szeltner is here with a report on the latest effort just launched today. Catherine?
Brian, Lila Rose of Live Action pioneered going undercover into abortion clinics 9 years ago. Her group has documented racism, misinformation, even sexual abuse cover-up in clinics. In a new video campaign launching today, Live Action says its videos show abortion is not safe for women.
This is a grasping instrument. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go.
Former abortionist Dr. Anthony Levantino describing tools used in a D&E, or dilation and evacuation abortion. After performing over 1,200 abortions himself, Levantino had a conversion and is teaming up with Live Action for a new video campaign.
These video series really unmasks the abortion procedure, and who better to unmask the abortion procedure than a former abortionist?
The series breaks down how abortions are done. All videos are posted on abortionprocedures.com. Live Action President Lila Rose says it's important to share the medical facts.
The abortion industry and the lobby are constantly using rhetoric to cover up what they do. They actually downplay the risk of abortion. They sometimes even say there's no risk to abortion.
The videos are clear about the risks involved.
For the woman, this procedure carries a significant risk of major complications.
Levantino lists uterine perforation, cervical laceration, infection, hemorrhaging, and death as possible side effects of a D&E abortion. Live Action hopes people from all walks of life will hear their message.
No matter where you've been, if you've been working in an abortion facility, if you've been an abortionist, if you've had an abortion, if you've encouraged one, anybody can change. They can say, I reject that, I don't want that anymore, and I want to heal.
Catherine Szeltner, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Catherine. And there is an alarming sharp spike in the number of life-ending prescriptions written in Oregon under that state's so-called Death with Dignity Act. Statistics released this month show the number of prescriptions jumped from 155 in 2014 to 218 last year. Since 1998, 1 year after Oregon legalized assisted suicide, the state typically saw an increase each year of just 12%. That has doubled in the last 2 years. Gayle Atteberry, Executive Director of Oregon Right to Life, joining us from Salem, Oregon by Skype. Gayle, is there any obvious reason for this spike in these lethal prescriptions?
Well, what's happening in America, and particularly in Oregon, is a change from a standard value to personal choice. And whatever a personal choice is of a person should be accepted. And if a person wants to commit assisted suicide through death with dignity, then that is his personal right and his personal choice.
It's very tragic. Is there any way to turn this trend around, this troubling trend?
In Oregon, no. What's happening, the Compassion and Choices, the pro-assisted suicide group, is working on doctors, encouraging them by saying nothing really bad has happened in Oregon. Again, it's your personal patient's right to do this. They are recruiting and getting more doctors to go along with this. And they have a very, very sophisticated network. We see patients doctor shopping. If their own doctor says no, then it's quite easy to hook up with Compassion and Choices and find a doctor that will.
They call it the Death with Dignity Act. How does this really go against the dignity of the human person, especially those with terminal illness?
What you're really doing is abandoning the patient. You're saying, all right, if you want to die, we're okay with that. Family members somehow, sometimes kind of thinking they're helping the patient, saying whatever you want to do, we'll be with you. But what they're really doing is sending a message to that person that, yes, you're better off dead, we'll help you be dead, instead of saying, you know, Mom, Dad, I'm with you to the very end. We're holding your hand, we're loving you, we're finding you all the relief that you need. We're sticking this out together. Instead, they're just saying, okay, you're better off dead.
Life is precious, every age and every stage. Gayle Atteberry, Executive Director of Oregon Right to Life. Thanks for joining us by Skype tonight.
Thank you.
Up next, a nation dealing with terrorism and refugees. Is Turkey cracking down on free speech, and why? And remembering a legend, a musical tribute to Ray Charles. Thank you for joining us for EWTN News Nightly. I'm Brian Patrick. Russia's foreign minister accuses those questioning a proposed ceasefire in Syria of calling for war rather than peace. The U.S. and Russia are working to solidify that agreement that could take effect by Friday. Wyatt Goolsby is here with more.
Yeah, Brian, it's clear the civil war in Syria is far from over. There are many who doubt the U.S. and Russia can implement a ceasefire long term. That's because terrorist groups like ISIS won't be at the negotiating table, and because various groups in the region, including Turkey, may be secretly supplying militants with weapons. The fighting continues in Syria despite a proposed ceasefire agreement. Footage from the Syrian military shows soldiers firing rockets in Aleppo. The Syrian army is fighting for control against the Islamic State. Nearly every faction, including Syria's President Bashar Assad, have welcomed a ceasefire in principle to a war that has been raging since 2011. The same goes for its neighbor to the north. Turkey has been on the front line of the fighting, taking in hundreds of thousands of refugees. but the tension in the region has led to a crackdown on Turkish journalists reporting on the war.
The problem is that Turkey just, we believed, is entered to a dirty war in Syria. And Turkey never did such things before.
Dilek Dündar is pointing the finger at Turkey's president for the crackdown on free speech. Her husband, Can Dündar, a prominent journalist, was arrested in November after his newspaper released information in this video reportedly showing Turkish intelligence smuggling weapons to militants inside Syria. Togla Tanis, a Turkish journalist based in Washington, reported news about weapons smuggling in 2013.
The Turkish government Syria policy is out of control, and they are trying to do this kind of things without coordination with any other allies or any other partners on the area. And when you try to cover this kind of stories, you end up in jail.
Tanis and hundreds of human rights activists are calling on the American government to put pressure on its NATO ally to push for free speech rights in Turkey and around the world. Wyatt Goolsby, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Wyatt. Republicans take legal steps to block President Obama's plan for closing the U.S. prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. House Speaker Paul Ryan says lawmakers have the votes to block Obama's plan in Congress, also enough votes to override any veto. He says the GOP is preparing a legal challenge to ensure the prison remains open and detainees are not moved to the U.S. Ryan believes Obama's plan will meet with fierce bipartisan opposition in Congress. Meanwhile, Cuba's president mobilizes the military to fight the Zika virus. Troops are going door to door, fumigating homes with a mosquito-killing fog, hoping to keep that virus out of the island nation. It's one of the few countries in the Western Hemisphere with no trace of Zika yet. Dr. Grazie Christie is with Catholic Association, recently wrote an op-ed on the Zika virus for FoxNews.com. Explain what you mean when you say this Zika crisis is too good for abortion advocates to pass up.
Well, international abortion advocates are excited about having another armament in their war to create pro-abortion cultures in Latin America, which are pro-child, they're pro-family. So this is another great way for them to move forward in that.
You're a mother of 5 or 6? Five. You're a doctor. You're a Catholic. How would you advocate addressing this Zika virus morally acceptably?
Well, first of all, let's find out if it's really causing the microcephaly, which the CCD is not sure about.
They are doing some tests now.
They're doing tests.
Surveys.
And they're trying to find out exactly what the connection is. And then let's support the victims, not eliminate the victims. These people who are being affected need our social support, our moral support, and our medical support.
So in Latin America, though, there are a lot of times this kind of imposition of values is accompanied by funding, money. Can Latin Americans stand up to that kind of pressure?
You know, the Pope spoke about this. He talks about cultural colonization, where the West uses their big money power to promote ideas that are popular in the United States, for instance, or in Western Europe, but that aren't pro-family and don't go along with cultures in Latin America that still value the family and the children. So yes, they are in danger of losing funding because they don't go along with these ideas promoted by people like the UN.
Do you think that they're strong enough, their faith is strong enough, their beliefs are strong enough that they'll say no?
So far, yes. The Brazilian bishops just came out real strong for the child and said that agreeing with the Pope that abortion is an evil and it shouldn't be a solution for an illness.
Dr. Grazie Christie with the Catholic Association. It's always good to see you, Grazie.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. The President and First Lady honor music legend Ray Charles tonight here in Washington. A tribute to the iconic singer, songwriter, and musician is part of the In Performance at the White House series. Ray Charles pioneered the genre of soul music, combining jazz, blues, and rhythm and blues. Ray Charles died in 2004, but his music lives on. Until tomorrow, for the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Good night. God bless you.